Welcome to Meeple Mentor. I'm Jared, and we're about to play Great Western Trail. Let's take a look. I'll show you how. Feel free to pause the video as needed to follow along with your copy of the game. For your convenience, I've added chapter timestamps in the description to the different sections of the tutorial. I have some upgraded components in my copy and will include the poker table mini expansion in the core tutorial. I'll explain the Rails to the North expansion at the end of the video. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell below the video so you don't miss any of my latest content. Great Western Trail may just be Alexander Pfister's best game. Set in 19th century America, you are a cattle rancher tasked with herding your cows from Texas to Kansas City. You'll make several trips, and once the cows get to Kansas City, you'll collect your payment and have them shipped on trains to cities around the country. The more valuable cows you can deliver, the more money you'll make. On your way there, follow the trail and stop at key building sites to do special actions. You may want to hire cowboys, craftsmen, or train engineers to help you manage your business more effectively. There are lots of ways to earn points in this deck-building Euro game, with plenty of strategies. Let's look at how to set it up. First, lay out the game board in the middle of the table. Take all the Station Master tiles you have available to you and randomly place them face up in the 5 Station Master spaces. Collect all 7 neutral building tiles. For your first game, place them face up in the spaces for them on the map, matching the letters. In future games, put them in random positions among the 7 starting spaces. Place the Job Market token in the topmost dashed round space in the Job Market area. Create 3 face-down supply piles of the numbered tokens, 1, 2, and 3. I have opaque bags for them from the BGG shop. These tokens all make up the Kansas City supply. At the start of the game, reveal 7 tokens from the number 1 pool, one at a time. When revealing a teepee, add it to the Indian trade section of the board in the center. Place them on the top row first, right to left, then to the bottom row, left to right. As hazard tiles are revealed, place them in their matching hazard trails on the board. There's 3 possible areas for them, with floodwaters at the bottom, high heat along the left, and falling rocks near the top. Place them in the lowest number available. If you run out of spaces, return it to the pool and draw a different tile. Don't stop adding tiles to the board until 7 have been placed. Next, you'll populate the job market with tiles from the number 2 supply. You'll draw number 2 tiles one at a time and add them in the top row first. There are 4 columns in the job market, but you'll only fill up workers here to the column for your player count. So in a 3-player game, place the first drawn tile in the empty space under the 3-player icon. Continue filling the rest of the row to the right. Then add tiles to the second row, starting in the column for your player count again. Stop filling the row once you reach the job market token. Now look above the job market to the Kansas City 4-site spaces. Draw 2 tiles from each supply, 1s, 2s, and 3s, and place them face up in their indicated spaces. Separate out the different player colors starting cards from the rest of the cattle deck. The starting cards will have a sheriff badge on them with the player color in the center. Each player has 14 starting cattle cards marked in their color. Each player's starting deck of cards is identical. You'll have 5 jerseys, 3 Dutch belts, 3 Black Angus, and 3 Guernseys. Shuffle the remaining cattle cards into a deck. Place the deck below the board here where the cattle market information is printed. In a 2-player game, draw out 7 cards. In a 3-player game, draw 10, and in a 4-player game, draw 13. Sort these cards into like values and color. Place the 3s out first to the left, followed by the value 4 cows and value 5 cows. You may want to arrange them in this color order for ease of seeing them across the table. Yellow, red, blue, brown, then purple. Pull out the 4 gray-backed starting objective cards and shuffle them together. Deal one of these out to each player. Any remaining should return to the box. Now shuffle the normal objective cards into a deck and place it to the right of the board. Below it, draw 4 objective cards face up for everyone to see. This is known as the general objective display. Create a supply pile of money nearby, which will be the bank. If you have the mini expansion at the poker table, place the table next to the game board with space around it. Create a stack of bonus markers based on player count. The most victory points token will be on top and the least points at the bottom. This is for a 2-player game, 3-player game, and 4-player game. Place this building add-on tile above the neutral building tile D on the game board. Place the hand of cards add-on tile above neutral tile G. Let each player choose which color they want to be. There's no gameplay difference. They'll collect the matching player board, player count tile, 14 discs, 1 train engine, 1 certificate marker, 1 cattleman meeple, and the 10 double-sided personal building tiles matching your chosen color. Take the starting player deck with their player color shown in the printed sheriff badge icon. Everyone should shuffle their starting deck and keep it face down to the left of their player boards. Leave room on the right of your player board for a discard pile. Keep your dealt out starting objective card face up below your board. In 2-player games, you won't need the player count tile and can return it to the box. Otherwise, find the 3-player or 4-player game side of the tile and place it on your player board in phase A at the top. Everyone should place discs on their board in the indicated spaces. The only 2 round spaces not covered are the 2 in the upper left first column. Place your certificate marker at the top of its track next to the 0. Everyone should add their train meeple to Kansas on the main board on the red building, just left of the railroad track. Players will decide where to place their cattlemen on their first turn, so hold on to those for now. You'll get to start on any of the starting building tiles. Multiple people can start at the same one. Randomly decide a first player. All turns will take place in clockwise order. The first player gains $6 from the bank. The second player gets 7, third player 8, and fourth player 9. This is everyone's initial money or starting capital. Everyone should arrange their building tiles in numerical order. They are all labeled in the middle left of the building, displaying the number and side. There's an A side and B side. For your first game, everyone should use the A sides of the buildings. In future games, you can randomize each tile to be A or B side. Once one player randomizes their tiles, everyone else must follow suit exactly so the available buildings are identical for each player. Now you're set up and ready to play. During the game, everyone will slowly make their way along the Great Western Trail from Texas in the bottom right corner to Kansas in the upper left. You'll be delivering cattle cards to gain money and place discs at locations along the railroad. Your cattle take the trains to various cities in America, but each player may only deliver to each city once. Each time someone reaches Kansas, more tiles are added to the map and the available workers market. The new worker tiles always fill downwards in the market and will be the in-game trigger. As it gets full and the tracker token moves off the edge, players get one last turn before scoring points. You'll probably get to deliver in Kansas 6 to 8 times. Points are tallied at the very end on the score pad. There are many ways to earn points, which I'll get into later. On your turn, you can move between 1 and 3 spaces on the trail following the path. Sometimes the path diverges and you may choose which one to take. Only count the spaces on the map that have cardboard tiles or tokens. Any number of players' meeples may sit on the same tile. The trail will slowly get longer as players choose to build new buildings. By taking actions at various locations on the trail, you can hire workers, buy more valuable cattle, move your train down the railroad, and build new buildings on the trail that only you can use. With the mini expansion at the poker table, you'll also be able to bet money and cattle cards to win extra money in the round. The game comes with cardboard money coins, but I've replaced them with metal coins from Top Shelf Gamer. I highly recommend them if you have the means. I've included a link in the video's description. Each player's turn goes through 3 basic steps, which are also shown on everyone's player board as A, B, and C. First, you'll move your cattleman meeple forward on the trail up to your movement limit. By default, you may move up to 3 spaces. Some buildings or hazards have hands shown on them, which are tolls. Should the toll be on a hazard or TP, pay the cost to the bank. If on a private building, pay it to the player who owns it. The cost of the toll is dependent on the color of the hand and how many players are in the game. In a 2-player game, green and black hands are each $2 fees. In a 3-player game, green hands are $2 and black hands are $1. In a 4-player game, green hands are $1 and black hands are $2. To remember this, look at the player mat's Phase A section. The overlay tiles will have these different costs represented. Also, if you should pay a toll fee but you don't have the money, just pay as much as you can. There's no penalty to not being able to pay. Then you may take the actions printed on the building tile unless they are owned by another player. If so, you are limited to doing an auxiliary action. You may also choose to do an auxiliary action instead of the printed actions. All the possible auxiliary actions are shown on the left of your board, but they must be unlocked. At the beginning of the game, only the top 2 are possible. Many actions on the building tiles require you to discard certain cattle cards from your hand. After taking actions, you'll draw cards from your personal deck up to your hand limit. By default, everyone's hand limit is 4 cards. After drawing cards, play goes to the next player clockwise. Getting cards cycled out of your hand is usually a good thing, as once your cattleman gets to Kansas, only unique cattle cards are counted in your delivery. When your cattleman gets to Kansas, there are steps to take in the order shown on the board. Move your meeple along to each numbered step so you don't miss anything. For the first 3 steps, you'll choose which of the 2 tiles to add to the game board. For each step, choose between the 2 face-up tiles directly below it. These may be TPs, hazards, or employees. TPs are placed in the Indian trade area in the center of the map. Fill the top 3 spaces first from right to left, then to the second row from left to right. Basically, place them in the lowest valued empty space. Hazards can be placed in one of 3 areas on the map. Water hazards at the bottom, heat hazards at the left, and rocks falling at the top. In all cases, place the tile in the lowest numbered empty space. If there's no empty space for it, remove the hazard tile from the game. Employees are always added to the job market area below. Keep placing them in empty spots next to the job market token until you are forced to move the token down and continue placing in the next row. Never fill up spaces that were emptied from players hiring them. Anytime the job market token is moved along a yellow arrow, you'll refill the cattle market. To do this, look at the total number of cattle cards allowed based on player count found at the bottom left of the board. So in a 3-player game, you'll draw cards until there are 10 cattle cards in the market. Just like in setup, sort the cattle by their color and dollar value within the market. Should the market already be full, don't add any more cards. Additionally, if the cattle deck is empty, no more cards can be added. The job market token is also the game end trigger. If a player must move the token off the bottom row along the red arrow, trigger the end of the game, giving each other player one final turn. After adding the 3 tiles to the board, move on to step 4 in Kansas for income. Reveal your entire hand and add up your total income from unique cow cards and permanent purple certificates owned. Gain that much money from the bank and discard your hand to your personal discard pile. Players also have the option at this point to spend their temporary certificates on their player board to boost their income. The certificate marker on their board will be moved upwards back towards 0. For each space moved, they increase their income earned this turn. In the 5th step, you must move one of your player discs from your board to a city crest on the map, paying any transportation costs. Players will be delivering their cattle to a city along the railroad up to a value equal to their collected income. The higher your income total, the further up the railroad you may place your disc. Each player may only claim a city space once, so if unable to place in a city due to not having a high enough value, or because you've already placed a disc there, you must place a disc in a lower valued city. If you have no options, then you must deliver to Kansas City. Kansas City is an exception to the rule, as multiple discs can be delivered here. When placing a disc in Kansas City, you'll immediately gain $6 from the bank, but will lose 3 victory points at the end of the game. Likewise, San Francisco is an exception to the rule, as players may deliver multiple discs there as well throughout the game. When you've decided which city you can and want to place a disc, determine if the city accepts black or white background discs. On your player board, some discs sit on spaces with a black border. The only time these can be removed is to deliver to a city with a black border. You are allowed, though, to deliver a disc from a white background to a black background. I just don't recommend it. Some discs have a cost to remove them from your player board. For example, removing the disc to increase your hand limit from 4 to 5 costs an additional $5 to remove it. Sometimes an icon is found between two city locations with green arrows. Should a player place a second disc to have discs in both, they immediately trigger the shown delivery action. These can be good or bad, but must be taken immediately. For example, the delivery action between Colorado Springs and Santa Fe is to choose an objective card from the 4-card display. This gets added face up to your discard pile. Then refill the display back to 4 objective cards. Delivery actions that show victory points let the player gain these points at the end of the game if they've delivered discs to the adjacent cities. After placing your disc, check the location of your train on the railroad to the city you've just delivered to. If the front of your train is past the city location, you pay no transport fees. But if your train is behind where the city is, you must pay $1 for each railroad crossing X icon shown between the front of your train and the city location. Pay this money back to the bank. To finish your turn, move your cattleman to the start of the trail on the board, placing it on the horseman space in the lower right corner. On your next turn, your movement starts from there. Then refill the empty tile spaces from the 3 you took in subphases 1 through 3. Make sure you draw the tiles from the matching number. The next player can now take their turn. Most actions in Great Western Trail are found on the buildings you stop at, shown with iconography. When thinking about the basic actions available, I'm referring to the actions shown on the starting neutral building tiles. Some buildings have multiple actions, which you'll know because a vertical line separates them. In those cases, you may do one or more of them in any order. Some actions may also have a diagonal line between them to indicate you must choose to do one or the other. You are not required to do the actions printed on the tile. In fact, players always have the choice to forgo the printed actions and instead do one available auxiliary action found on their player board. I'll explain all of those in a bit. When looking at an action, read it from left to right, seeing the cost required first and the reward next to it. The colored building tiles are buildings placed by players. Only the player who placed the building may take the printed actions there. Everyone else may only do one auxiliary action when stopping there. I'll explain more about the unique buildings later. Neutral tile A has 3 actions possible. The first lets you discard a white value 2 Guernsey cow to gain $2 from the bank. The second action lets you pay to hire a new employee tile from the job market. The price for them is shown to the right of their row in the market. Place the hired employee on your playmat covering the leftmost empty space. Everyone already has one printed employee of each type, so new ones get added to the right of those. If you cover up a bonus, you gain it immediately. The third action lets you hire a second employee tile, but you must pay $2 extra to do it. When placing your third cowboy, you'll cover up this bonus, which lets you take a hazard tile off the board and keep it. The fifth cowboy will let you take any TP tile off the board and keep it. Placing your third craftsman employee tile gives you an immediate build action. You'll pay the building cost as shown and get to place one of your buildings in any empty building space on the board. The fifth craftsman also lets you place a building tile at a reduced cost. Each time you place an engineer on your board, you'll get a bonus. The first lets you discard a gray Jersey cow to gain 1 certificate on your player board. The second gives you $2 for discarding a jersey. The third lets you gain a new employee tile at a $2 discount. The fourth gives you 2 certificates for discarding a jersey, while the last one rewards you with $4 for a jersey. Sometimes during the game, you may remove employees from your board to do various things. By freeing up the bonus space again on your board, you could gain it again by adding another employee later. At neutral tile B, 2 actions are available. The first lets you discard a green 2 Dutch Belt cow card to gain $2 from the bank. The second available action here allows you to pay to build one of your personal buildings on the board. Any empty building space is allowed. The cost shown here is $2 for every craftsman used to do it. Looking at your buildings, each shows a number of craftsmen required to build it. So if building tiles 1A through 3A, it requires only one craftsman. Remember, everyone already has one printed on their board by default. You would pay $2 then to place one of them on the board. Tile 4A shows 2 craftsmen. If you have 2 craftsmen, you can build this, but pay $4. This is the full employee cost, but you are also allowed to build over one of your buildings already on the board. If you do, you may reduce the craftsman cost by the craftsman already shown on the building you're replacing. This is how you'll get to place higher up building tiles requiring 7 or more craftsmen. By adding your personal buildings to the game board, you increase the length of the trail, forcing more movement to get further along. Additionally, you alone can use the printed benefits of that building tile. Others can only choose an auxiliary action if stopping there. Neutral tile C has 2 actions available. The first one has 2 options, but you must pick one. Either gain 1 certificate by moving the certificate marker downward on your player mat, or gain 1 objective card. When gaining an objective card, you can choose one from the face-up display or from the top of your objective deck. Objective cards are placed in your discard pile and get shuffled in with your cattle deck. Whenever drawing one from the display, refill the empty spot from the top of the deck. The second action at this building is to move your train forward on the railroad track. You can move it forward as many spaces as you have engineers. The trains occupy these spaces and only one at a time. When moving your train and there's another player's train where you should go, you must jump over it. The tracks also have turnout spaces where your train can pull into. When stopping at these train stations, you have the ability to place one of your discs there from the matching white or black backgrounds. Additionally, there may be an upgrade tile still sitting there from setup. To claim it, you must replace it with one of your employee tiles. It could be a cowboy, craftsman, or engineer. They will permanently sit at the train station for the rest of the game. Collect the upgrade tile and gain any immediate bonus. The top half shows either an immediate action benefit or a permanent certificate you should calculate with your deliveries each time. Should your train reach the very end of the track, it stops moving and you may upgrade the train station as usual. Then you must move your train backwards at least 1 space. You can choose any space on the track that's empty, even turnout spaces to move the train to. Then gain $3 in addition to being able to upgrade that train station. The neutral tile D has 2 possible actions. The first shows 2 options. Pick one. Either trade with the Indians or pay $2 to move your train forward up to 2 spaces. When trading with the Indians, choose any TP you want from the Indian trade section and keep it face up in front of you. Depending on where it was sitting, you'll either gain the shown money or pay what's shown. The second action lets you perform a single or double auxiliary action. Your player mat has auxiliary actions shown on the left. The action on tile D's building shows the gear auxiliary icon with 2 1x icons below it. That means you may do a single or double auxiliary action if you have that action fully unlocked. By default, the top 2 auxiliary actions can be done once without having to remove any discs. I'll explain more on these in a bit. The next neutral tile has 2 actions. The first lets you discard a black 2 Black Angus cow card to gain $2. The second action shows the cow icon, which is to buy cattle cards from the cattle market. Look at the bottom of the game board for pricing and details on buying cows. The price and option to buy higher valued cows is entirely based on how many cowboys you have on your mat. With only 1 cowboy, you can buy 1 cattle card with a value of 3 for $6, or buy 1 brown West Highland cow for $12. The cowboys aren't discarded or lost when buying cows. They're simply allocated to do buying actions. With 2 cowboys, you have more options. How you choose to allocate your cowboys is up to you. Note these cow cards have different victory point values at the bottom, which are counted at the end of the game. All bought cattle cards go directly to your personal discard pile. You can also use a cowboy to draw 2 more cattle cards into the market. Building tile F has 2 actions possible. The first lets you discard 2 of the same cow card, both value and color, to gain $4 from the bank. The second action lets you remove a hazard tile from the board by paying $7 to the bank. Keep the hazard tiles near you for the end of the game. They can help you complete objectives, but are also worth victory points. Should all 3 hazard areas of the board be empty, you won't get to collect a hazard tile. Building G has 2 actions possible. The first lets you advance your train engine forward 1 space for every engineer on your playmat. The second lets you do a single or double auxiliary action among ones you've unlocked on your map. The private buildings add new actions or new action combinations to the game for the player who owns it. I won't cover all of them, but will mention a few of them. Building 1A is a unique action related to how many of your buildings are placed in forest areas of the board. When you take the action, gain $2 for each of your buildings placed in a space where at least one edge touches any of the woods. It can even count itself if its tile is located in the woods. Additionally, anytime another player lands on or passes this building, they must pay you toll fees. Look at the green hand's fee for your game, which is based on player count. Building 5A will give you a new place to hire employees. You'll get to gain one at a $1 discount. That's in addition to being able to move your train forward equal to your engineers. Tile 9A has a cool set of actions I want to mention as well. First, you can advance your train up to 3 spaces. Then choose how far back you want to move your train backwards. For the total spaces moved back, you may deliver a disc from your board to a city equal to or less than this number. Don't count occupied spaces or turnout spaces in the total. You do not have to pay any delivery fees for this delivery. Gain any delivery bonus if necessary. If you ended at a train station, you may upgrade it as normal. Building 10A lets you move your certificate marker as far down as your limit unlocked. You may also move your cattleman up to 5 steps forward on the trail. Wherever you stop, you can do the actions there as well. For more details or questions about private buildings, check the rulebook on page 14. Everyone starts the game with 1 played objective card from the 4 starting ones. These are special because they don't lose you points for not completing them at the end of the game. The other objective cards gained to your deck during the game have point penalties for not completing them. When drawing an objective card to your hand, you can choose to play it face up in front of you below your mat, or to discard it. Any unplayed objective cards won't score points, either positive or negative. You'll have a chance at the end of the game to play them or lose them. You may play the objective before or after moving, or before or after doing an action in phase B. Basically, you can't play it while doing an action, nor while drawing cards. By playing the objective card, you'll gain the immediate action bonus in the top left corner of the card. The card will sit until the end of the game to be scored later. The tasks shown on the card are what is required to fulfill it. Each objective must have its own task fulfilled, not shared. For example, if you have 2 objectives requiring a value 4 cow card, you'll need 2 value 4 cows to fulfill both. One won't complete both. There are 2 actions on the game board that involve using the mini expansion at the poker table. The first is found above neutral building D. The second is above neutral building G. When your cattleman is at these buildings, consider it an extra action you may choose to do or not. This action lets you place 1 or 2 cattle cards from your hand face down next to your poker player at the poker table. The first time a player does this, they must add an employee tile at the poker table to play on their behalf. It can be any of the 3 types, but should be removed from the rightmost tile on your board. The employee tiles will sit at the table for the rest of the game, letting you engage the poker table over and over. Remember to place the tile next to your color's arms. After placing your person, gain the topmost bonus marker from the stack and place it in front of you. Immediately gain the money shown at the top. The victory points will score for you at the end of the game. The sooner you place a person at the table, the more money and points you'll gain. Once you have a person there, you can pay $1 to the poker table to add one of your cattle cards from your hand face down next to your person. Then you may place a second one if you choose, but paying $2 more for it. Also, each player has a limit of 3 cards that can sit next to their poker player. This can happen if the poker game hasn't triggered before you come around to the building again. The cards at the poker table will stay there until someone triggers the new poker time action. You are allowed to look in secret at the cards you place there at any time. The second new action is poker time, found above building G. Only players who have a poker player at the table and at least one face down card next to him can perform this action. It doesn't matter if they are the only ones at the table with cards. When doing this action, each player who has cards there reveals them. Add the cards' values together. Objective cards placed here don't have a value added. Whoever has the highest breeding value total wins the poker game and collects all the money at the table, plus $3 from the bank. In a tie, first add the $3 to the pool and evenly distribute the winnings among the tied players. Any excess dollars should remain on the table. Then all the cards are placed back in their players' discard piles. As I said earlier, you may always choose to forego the printed actions on a building tile and do a single auxiliary action. And you may see the double auxiliary action icon on certain buildings, letting you do a single or double action there. While a disc covers both spaces at these action rows, they are not an option. Once a disc has been removed, that action can be done one time when allowed. When both are removed, the action can be done twice when allowed. Even when doing a double auxiliary action from a building tile, you cannot do 2 different auxiliary actions. Choose one, and you can do it up to the amount of times it's unlocked. So, what are they? The first one lets you gain $1 from the bank. The second lets you draw a card from your personal deck, and then discard 1 card. The next one lets you pay $1 to move your engine backwards a space on the railroad track and gain 1 certificate on your player mat. Whenever you move your train backwards, remember to skip over spaces that are occupied by other players' trains. You can even move backward into a turnout space to upgrade the train station like normal. You cannot choose to move backward less than what the action requires. And you may not do an action that requires your train to move backwards if your train is at Kansas City. Also, always keep the train's nose facing forward. This action lets you pay $1 and move your train engine forward 1 space. The one at the bottom lets you move your engine backwards 1 space to trash 1 card from your hand. Trashed cards are permanently out of the game and are never shuffled back into your deck. Once a player adds enough employees to the job market to push the job market token off the bottom, the end of the game is triggered. That player gets to keep the token as it will be worth points too. This player completes their Kansas turn, but will not take any more turns. Each other player gets 1 final turn. After the last player finishes their turn, go to final scoring. Thankfully, the game includes a score pad to keep track of everything. Each player first gains 1 victory point for every $5 in their possession. Next, everyone adds up the victory points shown in the corners of each of the placed buildings on the game board. In the third step, players collect victory points from delivery discs placed. Look for points awarded when players have discs in the 2 adjacent cities. Some of these could be negative points. For each disc delivered to Kansas, players lose 6 points. Each player who delivered to Sacramento gains 6 points. Also, earn 9 points for each disc delivered to San Francisco. In the next step, players count victory points printed next to each train station where they've placed a disc. In step 5, count up the points shown on all your collected hazard tiles. And if using the poker table mini expansion, remember to score the victory points shown on the poker table bonus markers players may have collected as well. For step 6, separate your purchased cattle cards out of your hand, deck, and discard pile. Count up the victory point total of all these purchased cards. Should players still have face-down cards at the poker table at the end of the game, they are not counted in final scoring. They won't score their printed points since they're not in the herd deck. In the next step, first pull out any objective cards still in your hand, deck, or discard pile. These can be removed from the game or added to the objective area now without using the immediate bonus action. Any objectives played or kept will be checked for completion. Remember, tasks aren't shared and each objective needs its own task completed. If using the poker table, face-down cards still by your poker player can't be used to complete objective cards. For all completed objective cards, gain the victory points shown at the bottom. For each incomplete objective card, lose the shown victory points instead. Next, gain the sum of victory points generated by individual tasks of the Station Master tiles collected. These are independent of tasks on objective cards. See an overview of all of them in the rules on page 16. In step 9, everyone looks at the employee tiles placed on their player mats. For each tile placed in the 5th or 6th columns, gain 4 points. Likewise, look at the player mats in the Phase A section. Anyone who has removed this disc from their mat now gains 3 points. Lastly, the player who collected the job market token gains 2 points. Sum up everyone's point totals on the score pad. Whoever has the most points wins the game. In a tie, victory is shared among them. The first big expansion to Great Western Trail is called Rails to the North. Now you'll be able to expand your route to new city networks to deliver cattle to. However, in order to reach the northeast cities, you must build up branchlets in towns along the rail. Add in the 6 new Station Master tiles to your current pool at the beginning of game setup. Before placing Station Master tiles out, add the new folded game board above the base game board so the new city strip aligns with the art. Give each player a new auxiliary action add-on tile, which can be placed below the player mat on the left. Place the extra new disc on the second unlocked space of its action. Collect your color's 15 branchlet buildings and place 3 in each section of the add-on tile. Players will also gain 2 new double-sided buildings. They should add these to their collection. Create a supply pile of the new exchange tokens and give each player 1 to start the game with. Exchange tokens can be gained in a variety of ways, but are special because they can be used at any point in the game. It could be someone else's turn or in the middle of an action. To use it, discard it to the supply and draw up to 2 cards from your deck, and discard as many as you drew. From the new supply of 11 Station Master tiles, place 1 at random at each of the 5 spaces for them on the base game board. Then place a random one on the 2 spaces found on the extension board. Add the 4 remaining tiles to the right of New York City off the board. When a player delivers here, they may take 1 of the remaining Station Master tiles as a bonus benefit. Shuffle the blue medium town tiles face down and randomly place them in each blue town space of the extension board. There should be 6 used. The other 4 can return to the box. The first new addition to the game is a new auxiliary action available from the beginning of the game. When removing the disc for this action, you must pay $2. When doing this new action, discard 1 cattle card with a value of 2 to place 1 branchlet on the extension board. Branchlets can be placed on any town that is accessible to you. Each player may only place 1 branchlet per town. To be accessible, at least 1 rail track must connect to it from either the Kansas City office, a city crest that has one of your discs, or from another town that has one of your branchlets. Some towns have branchlet spaces that cost money to place there, or give money to place there. Some also give an exchange token, an objective card, or certificate marker advancement as immediate bonuses for placing your branchlet. When you place a branchlet at a town with a station tile, you may upgrade it like you would in the base game. This is the only time you're allowed to upgrade it. Branchlets are never removed from towns and are limited. When placing a branchlet next to a medium town that has a blue tile, you immediately trigger its action. You can choose not to do it, but will never get to do it later. Full descriptions of all the bonus actions of the medium town tiles are found in the expansion's rulebook. New city crests are found on the extension board as well. However, in order for you to deliver a disc to them, you must already have a branchlet added. When reaching Kansas and choosing a city to deliver to in Subphase 5, you may now consider cities on the extension board where you have branchlets. You must still meet or exceed the city value with your breeding value and remove the appropriate disc for the city, either a white or black background. When a delivery action is triggered, you must do it immediately. These will be shown attached to the city. If your train engine is behind the city value, you must still calculate transport fees ahead of the front of the engine. Just add up the railroad crossings between the front of your train and the number on the railroad corresponding to the city's value. Pay $1 for each crossing. Remember, you can still only deliver to a city once, except Kansas and San Francisco. But San Francisco has been moved to the extension board. The last city on the city strip is now New York City, to which you can also only deliver once. The negative points for discs on Kansas has increased to 8 negative points. The amount of extra points earned from discs at San Francisco is now based on how many bells are revealed on your new add-on tile. When the third branchlet in a column is removed from the tile, you've cleared it. So when clearing the second or fifth column, you'll gain an exchange token immediately. At the end of the game, you'll calculate your San Francisco delivery points by adding up the fully revealed bells on the add-on tile and multiply it by 2 points. You'll earn that many points for each disc on San Francisco. Building 12 has new actions corresponding to placing branchlets or revealed bells on the add-on. More details of each building and station master tiles are found in the rulebook. Keep the rulebook handy and check BoardGameGeek.com for FAQs and extra content. Check the video description for links to Top Shelf Gamer for token upgrades, Cloud Puncher Games for board game shelving, and Mr. Meeple t-shirts for cool board gaming shirts. The Meeple Mentor channel is now part of the board game community, the Gateway Network, made up of great upcoming board game content creators. Originally founded by the Gamecasters podcast, the network includes Instagrammers, podcasters, YouTubers, artists, and more. Click the link in the video's description or head over to the Gateway Network's Instagram to find great new content. Thanks for watching this tutorial. Like and subscribe if you found this teaching helpful. Stick around to watch another Learn to Play video. And remember, teach when you can, but always be learning. See you next time.